How do people find when you make suggestions? Do people get defensive, or how does that go down?
Because the things that you point out to them are things that are in the back of their mind anyway. I'd say 68% of our business comes from homeowners who are stuck, agents that overvalue to win the instruction.
Has AI affected your industry?
If I'm online, I see something that looks like it's AI generated or sounds AI generated, I just switch off. Every single one of my clients have almost become friends. Most of my business comes from word of mouth.
What have you done to kind of build your reputation?
That's not something that comes overnight.
What's the one piece of advice that could potentially save people significant amounts of money when they're selling? Hello and welcome to the Better Business Podcast, where I talk to business owners about the highs and lows, the pitfalls and successes, the agony and ecstasy of running a business. My name is Justin Challoner, and with me today is Sue Ianucci, and we're going to be finding out all about what she does and how she runs her business. So hi Sue, how are you? How are things?
Hi Justin, I'm great, thank you, and thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
Great stuff, no worries at all. So let's get started. Let's begin by finding out a bit about you. Can you tell the audience about yourself, about your business and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I live in Penarth with my teenage son, Fabio. I come from an Italian background, so big Italian Catholic family, very traditional upbringing. And I think at school I was sort of quite creative and then realised that, I'd have to get a proper job and ended up in insurance. So that's when my career sort of started, and it was really good to me. I did lots of different roles for some quite, sort of big blue chip companies. Really enjoyed it, but always felt that my creativity was stifled. So it was whilst I was working that I actually started a little side hustle, and that was buying property and renovating them. So I did perhaps what lots of people did back in the 80s, watched all the sort of DIY programs, Homes Under the Hammer, that kind of thing, got inspired by that and thought, I'd like to give that a go. That's where my sort of journey into property started.
Right. So when did you start out on your own? Did you set yourself up as a self-employed estate agent, or how did that work?
No. So initially I was literally just sort of renovating properties whilst I was in my corporate job.
Ah, right. Yeah.
And then it was through sort of joining property networks and speaking to other people in property that I got introduced to a gentleman who had just set up a personal agency brand. And we talked, and initially it was around the fact that he could potentially provide me with properties that I could buy. But nothing really came of it. And then it was during my experience, I suppose, of renovating properties and having to deal with estate agents, I kind of realised, gosh, there are some good out there, but a lot of them were just awful, absolutely awful. And back in those days, you could basically sell properties yourself online. So there was a company called Doorsteps where you pay £99. You actually listed the property yourself, you did the floor plan, you did all the viewings, and that's what I did. And I was finding that with my own properties, I was managing to achieve really good prices, often sort of over the ceiling price to the street. And I think that was a combination of the service that I gave and, the ability to sell the property that I'd renovated, but also because the renovations were done to a high standard as well. And I just really, really enjoyed it and thought, well, if I can do this for myself, I can do it for others as well.
Yeah. So where do you think that passion for property comes from?
Honestly, I don't know. I've always had it. I love anything that involves a transformation, turning something ugly and old and battered into something beautiful. I don't know whether that's just being inspired from those property programs I mentioned. But I've just always had that in me. It's something that I kept coming back to, and that's why when the opportunity came up to join an estate agency, I jumped at the chance because I thought, gosh, I wish I'd done this years ago. That's my passion. Property's my passion. And I suppose working in financial services as well, I've always been in a sort of highly regulated industry where compliance really matters. And so it was quite an easy transition for me as well to go into a estate agency. So I joined the sort of small agency that set up in Cardiff. And that was actually in 2024, so not that long ago, and just loved it. And then last year they got bought out by TA UK, the agency UK, and I've now just completed a year with them. after they acquired the business.
Yeah. So you've been doing it a relatively short time, just a few years,
For
really,
other people,
for other
yes.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's sort of the biggest lesson you've learned so far, do you think, from your time doing what you're doing?
I think there's probably two things. The first thing is, as a business owner, it's not easy. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
And you almost have to learn to ride and enjoy the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
And that's quite tricky. I think
Mm.
people, see success as quite linear and just a sort of a straight line up. And, it's far from the case. And I think if you spoke to any business owner, they'd tell you, there's plenty of times when you think, oh my gosh, can I really do this? The second thing then, I suppose, is just sticking with your passion. If you're really passionate about something and you love it and you just keep coming back to it, then that's the right thing for you to do.
Yeah. And you mentioned your creativity, that you have a creative streak. How does that sort of fit in with what you do?
So on the property side of things, that allows me to kind of design the interiors and put the interiors together. And I absolutely love that. I also like sort of garden design as well. And then how that translates into what I do sort of day to day in the estate agency. When I go and see a client, I will look at their property with a buyer's eyes, and I'm quite critical, but I believe in, if you can be honest with the homeowner and tell them how just some little tweaks can help them to either elevate their property, increase the value of their property, make it more desirable, then I'd rather have that honest conversation. And I think it's something a lot of estate agents perhaps shy away from because they're afraid that they won't then win the instruction.
Yeah. Yeah. How do people find when you do sort of make suggestions? Do people get defensive, or, how does that go down?
I think obviously you have to be quite diplomatic in how
Yeah.
you put things. But what I find is that their general response is that it's quite refreshing because the
Mm.
things that you point out to them are things that are in the back of their mind anyway. Particularly if they've already been on the market with an estate agent and they just haven't sold. Around, I'd say 68% of our business comes from homeowners who are stuck. They've tried traditional high street, they haven't been able to sell, and
Right.
then they come to TO UK. And, generally you have that conversation with them. It happened on Saturday, actually. I was at a viewing, evaluation on Saturday morning. And I said to the gentleman, look, this is what I think. What do you think? And he said, yeah. He said, that's always been in the back of my mind.
Mm.
He said, you've hit the nail on the head. He said, why has nobody else told me this?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've always thought honesty is the best policy. Obviously, you just have to be a little careful in how you deliver that
Yeah,
honest
yeah. It's
advice.
being tactful, isn't it? And of course, what you're trying to help them, aren't you? They obviously want to sell and they're not having any luck.
Exactly.
And I think, people at that point, they are probably more sort of more open to suggestions, aren't they? But,
Absolutely. I
but,
mean,
but
they know
yeah,
that something's wrong because they haven't sold.
yeah, yeah.
So they're almost expecting it. And, I think I've probably been quite fortunate because, I mentioned I worked in financial services. One of the jobs that I did, I was a loss adjuster.
Mm.
And, that's acting on behalf of an insurance company to go and see somebody about their claim. And generally, they were contentious claims. They were difficult claims. They were claims that potentially had to be repudiated and turned down.
Yeah,
And that was really tough, delivering bad news to somebody. It's never easy. But I think because I've done that, I almost feel like, well, I can cope with anything really, because I've been in some awful situations,
yeah, yeah.
having to take down claims. And as I say, I think people just appreciate just that you're helping them and you're being honest with them as well.
Yeah. Are there kind of common things that you come across, over and over, that are kind of, stumbling blocks to people selling? Do you sort of see the same things, or is it quite varied?
Yeah, I mean, one big issue is agents that overvalue, generally to win the instruction.
Mm.
But obviously they're doing everybody a disservice, themselves, the homeowner, because the property will just sit on the market and not sell. And that's quite a tricky conversation to have because obviously an expectation has been set. And then you're going in there and you're saying, actually, I don't think it's worth that much.
Mm.
But
Mm.
I always think, well, if I've gone in with evidence of why I believe it's a different value, and you talk somebody through and you explain where that evidence has come from, what it's based upon, generally they do accept it. So you've got that aspect. But then things like, obviously, everybody's home is their sanctuary, and everybody has different taste in decor. And sometimes it can be quite a strong, perhaps, theme that you see in the property.
Yeah.
And then that's something that perhaps needs to be scaled back a little bit, depersonalized, because at the end of the day, they're preparing their home for sale. They want people to come in and imagine themselves in that space. And if you've got, lots of personal photographs all over the place,
Strong colours.
It's hard.
Strong coloured walls and stuff like that. Yeah.
Do that.
And is it something that have you got any examples of where you've kind of come in and given that advice, and any sort of success stories where they just haven't been able to sell, then suddenly you come in, you have that chat, they make those changes, and then they sell. Has that happened? Can you give any examples of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, good examples are where we take on, or perhaps where I've taken on an unoccupied property. And I used to find this myself, doing property renovations. You can put a newly renovated property on the market, and it's empty, but everything's brand new in it. Fresh paint on the walls, new kitchen, new bathroom, but it kind of looks soulless. And sometimes people can't imagine how you would use the spaces. So often, if I'm taking on properties, particularly from landlords who are perhaps offloading property from their portfolios, I'll then work with a stager to actually put furniture in, put a little bit of personality into that home, or, make it look more modern with more modern furniture. So it appeals to the buyer that I'm trying to attract. So, if perhaps it's a starter home, then I know I'm going to be wanting to attract a first-time buyer. And so it'll be sort of modern, contemporary-looking furniture. And often that can elevate the price of a property as well.
Right.
I also host open days. So I'll have back-to-back viewings with multiple buyers. And of course, as one buyer is leaving, another one's arriving. And it kind of builds that sense of urgency and, there's demand for this one. And that really works well too, in terms of getting a lot of interest, and then, potentially going over the list price as well.
Yeah. Oh, so interesting that it does help to have the house, like you say, shouldn't be completely bare, it needs to have something in it to kind of help people imagine themselves there, but nothing too personal, nothing too kind of over the top or,
Exactly.
extreme.
Yeah. Because I think, not everybody has imagination. I can walk into a building that looks, rat infested and looks disgusting, and I can see the potential in it, but not everybody has that. And so even when you've got a nice, clean, open space, people need to know, okay, well, how would I use this space? How does that work with the rest of the house? How does it flow? And so spelling that out by either doing physical staging, or sometimes, if budgets don't allow, staging through AI. Okay. That works really well. So, I've been to some properties that perhaps, people have already started packing up because they're anxious to move, and there are boxes and stuff everywhere. And that's quite a hard sell, particularly when you've got to grasp somebody's attention online. As when people are online, literally a matter of seconds, they're swiping. So in order for those photographs to grab somebody's attention, sometimes I'll use AI to enhance them so that they can see, oh, okay, well, I'll put the physical photographs on, but I'll also put the AI staged photos so they can see how the area or the room could look. So it's just helping them with their imagination.
Yeah. So do you show the kind of the real world pictures of the property alongside AI pictures? Is that what you do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, I have to be very careful and make it very clear that the AI generated photos are how it could look.
Yes. Yes.
Just, there's always a disclaimer there.
Right.
But it's just helping people to understand how the space could look when it's not as it should be, because things are being packed up into boxes, and there's lots of kind of, personal things. And it's looking a bit messy, let's say.
Yeah. And I can see how that can come across as quite negative, even if the property's lovely, even if it's, the perfect location. But if you see all these boxes everywhere and it's all untidy and messy, I can see how that can put people off if they just can't imagine themselves, in that property themselves. But interesting what you said about AI. And obviously that's something that we couldn't have done, a few years ago, could we? And now it's become quite commonplace. How has AI affected your industry, and what do you sort of see? Are there any trends that you're seeing, or what do you think the future might hold in that with regard to AI?
Oh goodness. I mean, that's quite a subject, isn't it, in
Yeah.
itself? I mean, I use AI to help me with my day to day and to help market properties. So, for example, like the photographs I've mentioned, but I don't ever see it as a replacement of a human being, because as I alluded to earlier, people really value honesty. They value that personal touch, that personal opinion. And, in every job I've done, I've always kind of been very customer centric. I always put the customer first. I always treat them as I would wish to be treated. So whilst I use AI, it's still very much me behind everything. So, my listing detail that I put up, I might ask AI to help me put something together, but then I want it in my own words. So I just see it as a tool to help me with the day-to-day running of my business.
Yeah. Do you find it just makes you a bit more efficient? Does it sort of speed things up and sort of,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, yeah.
Because I think, sometimes you get sort of writer's block and you just don't know where to start. So I think if that can sort of just prompt you to have a starting point, and then you can, put your spin on things, that's invaluable because it
Yeah.
can save lots of time.
Yeah. And like you said, the kind of personal touch is really important, and that's not going to go away, is it? I think if everything was automated, everything was done through AI, I think people would get very fed up of that quite quickly, wouldn't they? And I don't think it would be as effective. Yeah. How do you kind of ensure that the personal touch is always there? Or, what are your thoughts on, maintaining good relationships with clients and the people you work with?
Well, from my own experience, if I'm online and I'm scrolling, the minute I see something that looks like it's AI generated or sounds AI generated, I just switch off. I just can't do it. And I just think, well, others must feel the same way as me. And, going back to TA UK, it is a personal agency brand. That's what we stand for, offering a personal service. I think without question, every single one of my clients have almost become friends. And I know that sounds a little bit, cliche, but I spend so much time with them, and I'm at a point in their life where emotions are running high. Generally a house move is instigated by some life-changing event. Either somebody's getting together with their partner, they're getting married, they're getting divorced, they're having children, somebody's passed away. These are big events in somebody's life that can be very traumatic, emotional. And so I feel quite privileged to be a part of that. They have my mobile number, they can contact me anytime. And that's the difference between, a personal agent and high street. We don't work 9 to 5. We don't close on a Saturday and Sunday. And I'm there for my clients all the time. And I'll say to them, look, if something's niggling you, drop me a text. I don't care what time it is. If it's something simple and quick, I'll answer it straight away, because I don't want you to be worrying about it. And if it needs more time, I'll let you know that, and I'll come back to you, within 24 hours. So yeah, it is very personal. I'm in touch with them roughly once a week. Some clients can be 3-4 times a week, because people have different needs, and I will tailor the amount of contact I have with that person depending on what they need. So it's all about them.
Yeah, because moving house is it's a massive undertaking, isn't it? And it's that sort of well-known saying, it's one of the most stressful things you can ever do in your life, isn't it?
It's definitely in the top 10. That's for sure.
And it's your home, isn't it? And like you said, it can be all sorts of reasons why people move, but there will always be a sort of high kind of emotions attached to it, whether it's like a positive thing, because obviously sometimes it's very exciting moving, isn't it? You might have a home you're moving to that you're looking forward to moving to, or it might be slightly more trickier situations, and so those emotions are going to be there. And I guess just having that person like yourself to hold their hands can be so important, can't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I've just been through a house move myself. I've got boxes in the background because I'm about to go through a renovation project in my own home as well. Yeah. And, it went like a dream until the last minute. And I was parked outside my house, at the new house. So I'd handed my keys over to my new buyers, and moved out of my house. And I was parked outside the house I was moving to for 4.5 hours with lorries packed with my furniture. And it was a Thursday afternoon. We were just about to go into the Easter weekend, so it was Good Friday, and it was 3:30. And I thought, oh my goodness, if this doesn't complete now, I'm literally homeless for the whole weekend with all my furniture. in the lorries. And the removal company were absolutely fantastic. And they were so calm and like, don't stress, it'll all be fine. And it was just a little glitch between funds going across to solicitors. But my goodness, did that cause a lot of stress? And, I'm somebody that's used to being in that situation for my clients. So I get it. And I think it's really important that you understand that this isn't just about selling a house. It's not a transaction. There's a person, there's somebody's life that, is hanging on all of this.
And I guess reputation is very important as well, isn't it, for yourself? So how do you, what have you done to kind of build your reputation and, for people to kind of, trust you and know that they can work with you?
Yeah, I mean, that's not something that comes overnight, is it? That has to be built. And every time somebody says to me, well, thank you for doing such a great job, that's the point where I'll say to them, well, would you mind putting that in writing? So I'm still building my reviews, but I'm happy to say I've got all 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
People will send me a text and tell me how fantastic the whole experience has been. And that's really heartwarming. It's one thing to do a job and feel like you've done a great job and you're going to be paid well for it. But it's another thing when you know that you've really touched that person's life and are really grateful to you. That's everything. The best part of this job is passing the keys over to the new owners and just seeing the smile on their face and then being grateful for having a good sort of journey. Because often it isn't.
Yeah.
So I feel really proud to be able to help people along that and have great reviews as a result.
Yeah. And how do people come across you? How do they find you? If they're looking to sell their property or they're not having much luck. Yeah. How do you sort of connect with those potential clients?
So if you Google my name, there's not many Sue Ianuccis out there. So that's an easy way. And you'll see my Google business page and my reviews. I'm also on the TA UK website. So you can, pop your area or your postcode in to find me that way. And I also have an Instagram account, which is Sell with Sue TA UK. Most of my business comes from word of mouth. And,
Right.
I'm really happy to say that. So that'll either be through, people that come across me through friends of friends, family, or through networking, because I do quite a bit of business networking as well.
Yeah.
So I'm in quite a privileged position, really. I haven't had to do any real marketing because it is literally just word of mouth that my business comes through.
Yeah, that's the best form of marketing. If that works for you, that's the best, isn't it? Because not only are you just being connected with new clients, but there's a recommendation from that. People won't mention your name if they don't trust you, if they haven't enjoyed working with you. So you've already got that automatic, like a warm prospect, haven't you?
Yeah.
And like you say, it means then you don't have to worry about, investing loads in advertising or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think, possibly one of the biggest challenges for TA UK is just to educate the British public so that they know that there is another choice. Traditional high street estate agents with the shop fronts, it's been like that for a long, long while. And, there are some great estate agents, but there are some really poor estate agents as well. And I think people have to perhaps understand that there is another choice and that personal agency doesn't necessarily have to cost more. In actual fact, often because we're giving a personal service, because we're giving honest advice, because we're valuing properties at the right level, our properties can either sell for more, sell more quickly. We can also help to negotiate on your onward purchase if there is one. So often, making the wrong decision about your estate agent can actually cost you more than the estate agency fee itself.
All right. That's interesting. Yeah. What are the kind of common misconceptions that you think that people have when it comes to buying and selling their homes?
Oh, gosh. That's a tricky question. I think there was a time where you could literally just pop your property online, grainy photographs, poor description, and it would still sell. That's not the case anymore.
Okay.
I think buyers have much higher expectations in terms of how a property is presented, how it looks, how those sort of key selling points are brought out online. And then when they come to view a property, obviously there are exceptions. You're going to have investors who don't mind coming to view a grotty property. That's what they want, but they'll want it discounted price as well. But generally, buyers' expectations are much higher. And, first-time buyers don't always fall into that sort of small two-bed category anymore. There are people out there that are earning, very good salaries, or they may be self-employed themselves. And, they're buying the 4 and the 5 beds. So you can't judge a buyer, but the vast majority of them will have high expectations of what they're coming to view.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Do you think things like social media have made an impact on that? Because obviously there's lots of property social accounts out there. There's lots of sort of, really amazing houses that, you can just see on your screen. Do you think that's made a difference?
Absolutely. And I think it's that culture of, I want it now. I'm not prepared to wait.
Yeah.
I know that when I bought my first property, it was a small flat. It was furnished with borrowed and sort of secondhand furniture, and you kind of worked your way up and just gradually replaced your bits and pieces. But just looking at my niece and nephews who just bought their own homes, they've totally gutted them. They're completely renovated, all their furniture's brand new. I think it's just different these days. People want it all, and they want it now. They don't wait.
Yeah. And have you seen any changes in kind of your local area? Any sort of significant sort of developments with regard to property? Anything that's maybe is different to how it used to be?
I think in my local area, we're in a little bit of a bubble. I think Penarth has always had really strong property values. I know when I moved here over 25 years ago, I think I was quite lucky to pick up a property that needed work. It was an ex-rental property, and I slowly renovated it and made it into a lovely home. And I think now, if I hadn't invested back then, I'd actually find it quite difficult to move into the area, because property prices are very strong, and they just continue to grow because it's such a lovely area. So we are in a little bit of a bubble here, but I think elsewhere in the country, at the moment, I think things are a little bit quieter. I think people are a bit more reticent to make big decisions because of what's happening in the Middle East. That's created a lot of uncertainty again.
Yeah.
Rise in interest rates, that all impacts on people's decisions to move forward, particularly if it's a big decision, it's a big jump up in value of property.
Yeah. What's the one piece of advice that could potentially save people, significant amounts of money when they're selling? Because obviously there's a cost to selling a house, isn't there? But is there anything that you can think of that people could do to do that and to kind of help? Because obviously finances are so important with property, isn't it? It's just it's fundamental. But with property, you're talking about thousands and thousands of pounds. So yeah, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think first of all, how you're going to present your property, look around it with a critical eye and think, well, if I was looking to buy this now, what would I pinpoint? The little DIY projects that have been left outstanding. Is it clean? Is it tidy? What's the curb appeal like? If I pulled up outside my house, would I think, wow, that's a nice house? So it's little things like that, decluttering. But also, I think, really think about who's representing you in selling your property. Is the person that's coming to value going to be the person that's selling it? Because that's the person that's been asking all your questions and finding out about you and your property. Chances are it won't. It'll be somebody else. Who's going to be doing your viewings? Will you be getting feedback? When will you get it? Who's going to negotiate the sale? If that's a process that involves multiple people, are you confident that they're going to have your best interest at heart? Because, the anecdotal stuff that I hear from homeowners is quite contrary to that. Estate agents not even turning up for viewings, estate agents not looking at the property after the viewing, not giving feedback. It's not acceptable. It's not right.
Yeah.
And so really think hard about who you instruct to sell your property, because that could be detrimental to you and to the value of your property as well.
Yeah. Have you ever had a property that, when you initially saw it, you thought, oh, this is going to be impossible to sell? Have you had anything like that?
Yes. The very first one that I took on as a personal estate agent.
Oh, right.
Really sad circumstances, actually. It was a lady that had passed away quite young. She was originally from Spain. It was her sister that I was put in touch with through somebody that knew me. And when I went to the property, it was just in an awful state because it'd been in probate for such a long time. It'd been empty. The walls were green with mould and there'd been watering grass. It was just in a really sad state. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be a tough one. So I decided to host an open day, put it online, and was inundated with inquiries. And that made me think, oh my gosh, have I priced this right? Perhaps I've undervalued. But actually what that taught me was that you can't ever undervalue a property, because there was so much interest. I think I ended up doing something like 22 viewings. That actually drove the price up. So it went for way over asking price. And because an investor purchased it, it completed in, record time as well. So from the family's point of view, what could have been a really sort of stressful situation, and it was sort of highly emotional, went really straightforwardly. They got a good price for their property. So that did teach me, don't ever judge, what you think won't sell isn't necessarily the case. So I just sort of give it my all. That's all I can do.
And have you ever had any properties that you were like really confident, you just went in, oh, this will sell in a few days, and then and that didn't happen? Is that an experience
too?
Yeah.
And it tends to be with larger properties, higher value properties. I think you just have to accept that you've got a smaller buyer pool, because from an affordability point of view, there are going to be less people who can afford that size of property and that size of mortgage. And as I said, because of the current situation with the Middle East, that has affected some people's sort of big decisions. So I think larger properties definitely take longer to
What's the kind of, in regards to your business, running your own business, what's the kind of the toughest decisions you've had to make during your time, working for yourself, and how have you sort of overcome those decisions?
I think it's probably that sort of recurring feeling of, have I done the right thing, and is this working? Because self-employment is a roller coaster. Sometimes you can be really busy and rushed off your feet, and other times it starts to go quiet, and then you panic and think, oh my goodness, what do I need to do? And so often that thought will creep into your head, should I be carrying on with this? But I've learned through experience, and I suppose through working on my mindset, that that's normal. That's normal for a business owner. Before I sort of finished my corporate job, the last one I was in, I joined a program that was run by a psychologist called Dr. Ben Hardy. And he basically works with self-employed business owners and works on accountability, mindset. And I actually joined his program for 2 years. And that was hugely beneficial. I mean, I don't think I've read so many books in that sort of short period of time. But it taught me that, accountability, number one, is huge. If you've got somebody that holds you to account, and mine happened to be a gentleman that was based in Fort Lauderdale in America. So this is an international program.
Okay, yeah.
And we would check in with each other daily through an app to see what we'd done for the day. Because I think it's only human nature you can let yourself down, but it's harder to let somebody else down. So that accountability just meant that every day I was doing something to move my business forward, and that was absolutely massive for me. And then the other thing, I suppose, through reading, and Dr. Hardy would recommend books for us to read. I read a book called The 4 C's, and it's all about, when you're starting something new, you go through a process. And first of all, you have to have the courage to start. Then you have to work towards a level of competence. Then you work towards confidence, and just understanding that, when you're starting something new, it is a process. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to have doubts, but you kind of just have to work through that process and get to the point where you feel like, I can do this. And it takes time.
If you're running a business by yourself, it's just you, isn't it? I mean, I guess you have support, being part of the agency.
Yes.
But what is your kind of support? Do you have a support network that you can kind of lean on at all?
So I think, I'm fortunate enough to be part of a South Wales team, and there's probably 5 of us that work really closely together. So we're there to support each other. We're there if one of us needs to take time off, because obviously everybody deserves a holiday. And so we cover for each other, and that's fantastic. And we've got all sort of varying degrees of experience, and that's amazing. But I think if you don't have that, my best bit of advice would be, obviously, seek support from friends and family. And most of my biggest cheerleaders are in my friends and my family, but also networking. I actually joined BNI just over a year ago, and it's not for everybody, but I love the structure. I love the support that I find there. And, in my chapter, I've made some real friends. And it's great to feel that even when you're not in the room, there are other people there championing you and your business. That's really powerful.
Yeah. And you've got that accountability there as well, like you said before, like having someone that you can kind of be accountable to, and also just bouncing ideas off people. And it is great to know that you've got those people you can lean on, because it can be quite isolating, working for yourself, can't it?
Just being able to pick up the phone, if you're having a bad day, to be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody who understands what you're going through, what you're feeling, and either offer you advice or just let you vent. Often that's all you need.
Yeah, just get off your chest and then you can kind of carry on, can't you? Yeah. What would you say to your younger self? Like, is there any advice that you would give your younger self with regards to running a business?
So much. Yeah. Again, I suppose going back to what Dr. Hardy teaches is not to be defined by what's happened in your past and not let it affect your future. I had quite a sort of a tough beginning because my mum died when I was 14 months old. And the very person that was meant to sort of care for and nurture me did the exact opposite. So I always had self-doubt, always had problems with confidence. And I think what I learned was to not listen to that negative voice that's in your head and to really focus on the positives. I get a lot of positive feedback and I've learned to listen to that and almost it's like a little video that plays in my head of all the nice things that people have said to me, all the good stuff that's happened, all the successes that I've had. So when I am having a bad day, I kind of play that little film in my head. And that's what helps me. So if I was to give advice to my sort of younger self, it would be, listen to the people that truly care about you and let all the negativity just fade away. Because I think, people who are negative, people who are bringing you down, they don't have your best interests at heart. They've got their own problems. Just learn to close that off. So I just surround myself now with positive people who are cheerleaders of mine, who are a good influence, who make me feel good, who lift me up. And I hopefully do the same for them.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's really good. So do you have any routines or any practices that you do to kind of help you with your business, that, anything to kind of deal with stress or anything like that?
So I've always been a big list maker. It's the problems with my lists, so they tend to just go on and on and on. And another book I read was Eat That Frog, and that basically says, choose 3 things that are fundamental to your business that need to be done to move your business forward. Put those 3 things on your list and always tackle the hardest thing first, because then you'll feel that sense of achievement and the other things that you need to do will follow very easily. So lists work an absolute treat for me. I think when there's bad news to be given, I always tend to tackle that straight away. I don't let those sorts of things fester. And, inevitably with a house sale, it can be a lengthy process. Things can go wrong. And I always just tackle those things head on. But before I deliver the news, I just sort of have a calm moment to myself to think, right, what can I do about it? What's within my control? So that when I deliver that news, I've got either a solution or I've got something to just sort of temper the difficulty around it. And also, I approach things with, okay, this is my plan A, but if that doesn't work out, let's have a plan B and a plan C as well. And I think people really appreciate that. I'm sure there's much more as well. Like sometimes just lunchtime, I just go out for a walk and just calm myself down if I'm having a particularly stressful day. I do love to go for walks, and that's a great way to de-stress. I think particularly if you can sort of get out into nature.
Oh yeah. I'm with you on that. That really helps me as well.
If there's a pub at the end of the walk as well, even better.
Oh, it does help. Yes. Do you have any kind of plans or ambitions for the future? Where do you see yourself in, 3, 4, 5 years time? Have you sort of thought that far ahead at all?
Oh, absolutely. I think about it all the time.
Oh, okay.
So I absolutely love what I do. And I think I'm privileged to be in a job that I enjoy so much. But of course, there comes a time when you don't want to be working so much. I'd like to spend more time with friends, family, traveling. I have family abroad that I'd like to see more often. And so for me, I'm aiming to a point where I have a bit more sort of time freedom, but also financial freedom, so that if I continue to work, that's out of choice rather than necessity.
Yeah.
So my goal in 5 years' time is to be in that situation where, I don't have to worry about the bills being paid anymore, but that's covered. And then what I do with my time is completely my choice, and who I spend that time with. I think that'd be amazing.
That is the great thing about being self-employed. If you can get to that point where, you very much pick and choose what you do, you have complete freedom and control rather than someone else telling you what to do. That's the ultimate, really, isn't it? And that's the payoff for all the hard work and the blood, sweat and tears.
Absolutely. Because I don't, I think when you love what you do, I can't ever see a time when I retire. It's just not in my, my head at the moment. But to be able to, pick and choose who you work with and how you do that work, that would be fantastic. Yeah. So that's my aim.
Oh, great. Oh, well, I hope it all works out. That's very exciting. Yeah. We're kind of coming to the end of our time, but I've got a few questions. They're quick fire questions. So it's a quick fire round. So I'm just going to fire a bunch of questions at you, and if you can kind of try and answer them, just quick response. But I'm not going to get too sort of officious about it. We'll just see how it goes.
No pressure.
No pressure. So here we go. Let's go for the first one. So, coffee or tea?
Definitely coffee.
Cardiff or Penarth?
Penarth.
Morning person or night owl?
Probably night owl.
What would you say is the best business book?
The 3 C's, or 4 C's, sorry. The 4 C's.
Okay. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Dishonesty.
Okay. And what's one word that describes success?
What you make it. Very individual to you, and that looks different for different people.
Who would be your dream dinner guest?
Ooh. I love listening to Diary of a CEO.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So probably Stephen, I can't think of his surname at the moment.
Bartlett?
Bartlett.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he'd be fascinating speaker as well. Such a good host.
Yeah, definitely. What's your favourite place in Wales?
I do love Mumbles and anything coastal, really. I think we've got some beautiful beaches, and whilst I don't like being in water, I love watching water.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You've got some great, lovely, beautiful scenery on the coast, definitely. Yeah. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Believe in yourself, and don't listen to negativity.
Yeah, that's the end of the quick fire round. So yeah, we're going to sort of wrap things up now. It's been fantastic talking to you, Sue. I really appreciate your time, and it's been really interesting finding out about what you do and how you run your business. What's the next year looking like? What's sort of the next 12 months? How is that shaping up for you in terms of the business?
So I'm on sort of target to do 3 times what I did in year 1, which I'm chuffed to bits about.
Oh, brilliant.
I'm really excited to see what TA UK do to increase their sort of visibility. As I said earlier, they just hit the 100 top growing companies in the UK on the Times list.
Oh, okay.
And that's really, really exciting. So yeah, just looking forward to seeing where all of that goes, and continuing to grow my business.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much for talking to me today, Sue. What we'll do is I'll put sort of the various links in the description below. So if people do want to reach out to you, if they do want to get in touch, then they'll be able to find you there. But yeah, it's been really great talking to you, and I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin.
Bye. If you learned how to build a business people trust and recommend, you should definitely watch our conversation with Dan Rogers on how to build a business that runs without you. Dan shares what 14 plus years of business ownership taught him about burnout, delegation, leadership, profitability, and building a business that creates freedom instead of consuming your life. If you want to build a business that gives you more freedom, not another full-time job, then click on the link below to watch next and find out more. And if you're looking for more practical lessons on building a better business, please subscribe to the Better Business Podcast. See you soon.